us right now. So I'd like to welcome everybody by starting off with the opening tradition for GEA meetings with the reading of the vision. Annie, can you share the screen?
Yes. Yes.
And at everything that we hold, we start with the vision, taking it in turns to read it, sometimes in English, sometimes in other languages. And I always find it incredibly beautiful when I hear it in languages other than English. And I now have to put my glasses on. Hold on. Our vision. We envision a transition from plastic in our households, communities, and enterprises to an ever greener harmony with Earth's cycles. Our mission. To raise ecological consciousness through the spread of eco-living and the transformation of global plastic into local solutions. Our dedication. Our work is dedicated to our children, our children's children, and the children of all species for all time. Together, we can be the transition to ever increasing harmony with the cycles of life.
Yes. Thank you.
So this meeting today is for the trainers, for our circle of Ecobrick trainers around the world. And the title of the event is the Ayyew Origins in Ecobricking with Russ and Irene.
All right, thanks Lucy. So again, welcome everyone. Selamat datang teman-teman. Terima kasih sudah join. Thanks for registering and joining us. The next agenda is a little bit update from the GEA. I'm going to just read. Okay, so we've been busy this year, lots of big developments for 2025. So number one, that our center circle meets every Monday. So we have center circle, ada Lucy, Russell, Annie, Aang, Rere, Vivo Santi, and Fran, and other one is like Germany, Moroccan. So it's like every Paula, every week for the last 3 years, which is like quite great. We meet and we talk almost everything about the Global Ecobrick Alliance. And we've decided to base the GEA in Indonesia because of so many reasons. So we're almost complete the registration of our perkumpulan. Jadi for teman-teman Indonesia, we are registering for perkumpulan. It's kind of foundation type of the social movement. So like a co-op foundation, maybe in English or Western concepts. And then number two, we've ditched the big tech and relaunched the GoBrick. So if you guys notice that now we have a GoBrick, we stopped the GoBrick like 4 months or 6 months, and then now we have a new one. We already launched that, and we also share the news through the newsletter, I think from December and January. And then number three, we no longer use the US dollar in our accounting system, and now our accounting is using Indonesian rupiah. And it's again, we already launched this. We already make announcement about that. We're so proud of doing this through the newsletter and other news. And so for everyone, the trainers who are not having the GoBrick account, please sign up. If it's you have, but you haven't activated the new one, there is also the time after this or tomorrow, please sign up or log in with the new system. That's for the updates from the GEA. And yes, we are going to have 90 minutes, Lucy, yeah? And then we are recording. We have 90 minutes, Lucy and I, we try to keep time. And now actually going to the main agenda. It's again, thank you so much, Russell and Irene, for your time, for your dedication, for your work. And tonight we are going to really learn and listen from you guys. And before that, it's my time to introduce you too. Jadi teman-teman, saya mau baca biografinya Russell and Irene. I will just read. So Irene Banayan Angway. Nickname is I. Is it correct, Irene?
Yeah.
Here, yes,
Yeah.
here we are going to call her during this event as Irene. With her academic background in education and anthropology, Banayan has worked for over 2 decades in indigenous value education. A longtime researcher and practitioner of her people's values, she has worked tirelessly to integrate Igorot concepts into the education curriculum of the Northern Philippines. As the Indigenous People Education or IPED coordinator for Mountain Province from 2011 to 2015, she oversaw the integration of Igorot values into 5,000 schools. In 2012, guided by these values, she was instrumental in the start of a local movement of eco-breaking that would later spread across the entire Philippines and beyond until now here in Indonesia. She has been the she has been the Filipino Department of Education School Division Superintendent for the province of Abra and Tabuk City. She is currently the DepEd Superintendent for the province of Apayao. So her field of work is always around the education and then the culture and the indigenous peoples. And her hobby is writing, natural farming, and permaculture practice. So yeah, that's Irene. And the second one, Russell Maier, we call it Russells or Russ, or here in Indonesia, we call Rusli. It's like Indonesian name. Russell is an inventor with a background in art and philosophy based in Indonesia. Russell is a co-founder of the Global Ecobrick Alliance with Irene. His European great-grandparents were immigrants to America in the 900-ish, eventually settling in Canada. There, he grew up in the Yukon River Valley, building forts and getting to know the vast forest in his backyard. When not gardening, programming, or cycling, he writes on regenerative innovation and green philosophy at the Earthen.io. So yeah, his field of work is around regenerative designs, and the hobby is again cycling, calendars, keeping in shape. Everything is like active. So that's about Irene and Russell's. And yeah, a few things that is also, wow, interesting. You just know now, and then it's great just to hear and to read this. Okay, so for the first session, that is like getting to know more about Russell and Irene and the start of the eco-breaking and how about the North Philippines. So I will start and then Lucy will continue later. So my question for Irene, and I will stop Russell, can you stop the spotlight? I think you're doing the spotlight now. Okay, and then I will just, okay. So we want to hear from Irene because, okay, we heard your bio and it is just so fascinating. We heard a lot your name in few different documents, and Russell keep telling us about you too. And so before that, just tell us who you are and about yourself. It's like something that is like, about your work again, your passion, your values, and where they're coming from. So that's time for you, Irene. Thank you. It's like 4,
Okay.
5.
Thank you, Annie, and good evening to all. Good evening, my morning basa. Do we have somebody here? Anyway, it's evening here, so I'll use that. I am Irene, as was mentioned a while ago. I could only summarize I could summarize my or I could add to that in just maybe 3 points. One, I have been an influencer of the young. Being one, I was a student leader myself when I was still a student, but that continued when I became a teacher. So I directly dealt with the learners. And then when I was into supervisory, so I worked both with learners and teachers, and still that's influencing our young. And then with my current work now, which is I deal with school heads, teachers, and learners. So it's the responsibility is getting wider. The influence directly to the learners is getting a little bit far from them, but now I'm working more with people through the school heads, the teacher, and the teachers. So I belong to the indigenous peoples. We call it Apply here in the northern Philippines. And I am from Sagada Mountain Province. That is one of the provinces, or Sagada is one of the towns in Mountain Province, which is found in the northern part of the Philippines. It's one of the landlocked province. It also belongs to, on a bigger scale, it belongs in the Cordillera Administrative Region, which is the only landlocked region in the whole Philippines. So if we look at it, I grew all my life, in the mountains. So with that, I am proud to say that that helped me to appreciate. I grew up in the mountains, and there's not much when you have so many mountains. And I grew up with ancestors who are so much used to work, and so we grew up really having to work with our hands. Our joke when our joke was, we do more work just so to plant, let's say, a few square meters. So in our place, the Sagada, no, which is very mountainous, or the place where I grew up, my hometown, you have very few flat places, or let's say very few plain places. It's more of mountains. And so if you want a flat area, you have to flatten a mountain. I have to emphasize that, because that is one thing that influenced our ancestors into developing the concept of Ayyew. Because through time, I will explain further later. I will explain further later how this one influenced them, but they developed that everything that they have is something that they have to cherish, and they have to maximize its use, including rice, including everything. And maybe we could discuss that further later. And the last point is, the wisdom and the values that I have now were honed by many factors, including the teachings my ancestors have passed on to us, which we have been practicing not only as individuals, but as a people. And this was passed from generations. This was developed because of the different situations, the difficult situations that we have in our place, especially that the concept and the wisdom of Ayyew. So yeah, and as an indigenous, one who belongs to the indigenous peoples, the Apply, it had been ingrained to us this connectivity of everything, which is also one of the very concept of Ayyew, na everything is connected, living and non-living, the resources and the people who make use of the resources. And actually, even my name, we are known in our place. We have our indigenous names. We also have, I'm Irene, and in my birth certificate, I have the Irene, but I am also known in our place as Banayan. That is my indigenous name. And that is also telling us, or when you hear one with the name Banayan, you know that somewhere along the way, your ancestors met. In other words, you were connected uh, you may not be able to trace it now, but you are just not given a name. Our indigenous names tell us that we have ancestors named like those. And so you do not just get that name, but because you are part of, or you belong to one or you are a part of a generation that has that name. And so when you hear Banayan, example, I have this one who does not belong to our indigenous group. She belongs to another indigenous group in another province. And she was my student before, but we did not get to know each other very well. When I became their superintendent, I came here, I stayed with them, and she had been my friend. She became one of my support and one of the, because, but then it is after some time I came to know that she has my name. I mean, we have the same name. She's from Kalinga. She belongs to the Kalinga tribe, but we both have and so her mother started tracing, and we came to find out that they had one ancestor before. I think they are the third generation already, and she was named Banayan, and then she went to somewhere in our place, which and they call it in another language, but that was in our place. So we may not be able to, but of course we can, but we may not be able to do it now and trace it directly, but we know that somewhere we have the same ancestor. So that is, if that is in our, that is also true in how we see things, which we will understand further with the wisdom of Ayyew. I think that's all. Maybe I said so much. So
Thank
thank
you.
you. Mhm.
Thank you. We will talk more about the AU. It's
Yeah.
over to you, Lucie.
Okay, so Russell, really the same question for you. Your story about living in northern Philippines and the beginning of the Ecobricks.
All right, sure. Well, as many of you know, I'm Canadian. I am not Filipino. My story in the Philippines is one of a vacation gone bad. So I think it's important to clarify that the part of Canada that I come from is also very mountainous and very remote. There are not many people there. There's a lot of forest and there's a lot of creatures. And I spent my time growing up playing in the forest and exploring. And I think that was subconsciously one of the things that drew me to Irene's part of the Philippines. Um, just Irene kind of glossed over just how mountainous and isolated and rugged and verdant her part of the Philippines is. In order to get up there, it's a 6-hour bus ride from the nearest city through it's crazy bus ride that winds through the mountains and the hills. It goes up and down, around and around, and that's the closest city of over 100,000 people. And other than that, it's also, I think, one of the most sparsely populated areas of the Philippines that the Spanish really struggled to get to over their 300 years of colonization. They barely made it up there. And when they did, they met a lot of resistance from the Igorots. Okay, so how did I end up in that place? I had traveled to the Philippines for what was supposed to be just a month-long holiday with my girlfriend at the time. We spent our time on beaches and things like that. She had to go back to Europe, back to France. I decided I would stay longer and do some exploring. I looked at the map and I saw this place called Sagada up on a map, and it looked far away from everything. And there were pictures of rice terraces. And I thought, oh, that'd be really cool if I could go up there. So I headed up there on the long bus ride. And from Manila, it's even further. So I think it's like 12 hours, Irene, to get up there from Manila. It's 6 hours to Baguio, another 6 hours to head on up to Sagada. And there, my life kind of fell apart around me as my girlfriend broke up with me. My art contracts disappeared, my web design contracts, and I found myself unable to leave because of a broken heart and things just not working out with life. And my visa expired, my passport expired, my return ticket expired, and 1 month turned into another and another. And eventually I ended up living for 4 or 5 years in the northern Philippines. Now, one thing that was very different between my mountainous part of Canada and the town where I grew up and Irene's town is that plastic was very much a problem. There was no way to really dispose of plastic in the ways that I was familiar with as a Canadian. In Canada, we have a great recycling system, great trash collection system where you just put your stuff in a box and it disappears. And the streets stay clean and everything stays clean. Now, whether or not that actually works is a whole other question, but it does mean things are clean. So when I saw the streets and the rivers in and around Sagada, and I saw plastic there, it really shook me up. It was the first time I'd seen this. And then when I started to live and consume plastic and consider where my plastic that I was consuming was going, I realized that for the plastic I was consuming, there was no responsible way to deal with it, to manage it. I tell the story about following the lady who was picking up the plastic in the village where I was staying, because I was curious what was happening to it. And I followed her down to this beautiful river in the valley where the men fish, the children swim, the women do the laundry, and the plastic was being burnt and chucked in there and floating around. And that was my plastic. So it really upset me, hurt my heart. I like to say, hati saya sakit untuk lihat itu. So I began to consider things that could be done with it. My background, as many of you know, is as an artist, at least at that point it was. And I started pursuing all sorts of creative paths for dealing with plastic. There was this amazing bunch of industries in Mountain Province for transforming plastic into different things, transforming old tires into chairs, transforming wrappers into bags, transforming straws into mats, and I explored them all. But I also have this background in philosophy, and I couldn't help but wonder what was going to happen to these creations that we were making with the plastic once their time came to an end. How were they going to be disposed? So this was lurking on my mind as my friends and I started to experiment with yet another technique that we learned of in South America. And this technique was taking sand, putting into a plastic bottle to make bricks, and then with those building gardens and walls and things like that. So we had gone down to the river where the sand was. We were filling these bottles up, and the sand pit was right beside the burn pit. So as we're filling these bottles up with sand, I thought to myself, why don't we try putting some of that plastic in with the sand? And so we tried that. It worked. The brick was just as solid. So I thought, well, why not we put more plastic than sand? And so we did that, and it was just as solid. So then we thought, well, let's just put all the plastic into the bottle and forget about the sand, and let's fill it up with plastic. And it made a bottle brick that was just as solid and just as effective as the sand bottle bricks. So I remember just staring at these bottles filled with plastic for an hour. Like I just stared there. It was a eureka moment. I thought to myself, wow, this is something that anyone can do in the villages with their lack of technology and industry, but with their semangat, we say in Indonesia, their enthusiasm, their nagagut, we would say in Kankanai, they can put that passion for their environment to good use by just doing this. And so I took it back to my house, this idea, I started doing with my plastic. The local church was interested, so we did a workshop with them, and we transformed all of this plastic into bottles. That was fantastic. I had a Filipino friend, Pai, who was staying with me at the time, and he was like, Russell, you really need to talk to this lady who works with the Department of Education in Bontoc, because she can get this going. And I was like, oh, I don't know, really? Department of Education, teachers. I was a little skeptical, but he dragged me down there, and we arranged a meeting with Irene. And in this fateful meeting, we sat down with her. She took a look at the bottle. She took a look at me, I guess, and she thought, oh, what this crazy Canadian thinking. And she decided then and there that they would give it a shot with 300 schools. And I know you guys see the picture of Irene there. She's got her nice jacket and she's got the leather chair behind her. But this lady, I came to know as being, again, semangat is the word we use in Indonesia, extremely passionate, not just about the environment, but about her people and about education for her people. And she would go around the entire province, going to all these remote schools, like schools you can only get to by walking up a mountain, down a valley, walking up another mountain. She would go to them. And so, she was the administrator, but she was also passionate about getting out to all these schools that she knew had a problem with plastic. And she was passionate about getting this Ecobrick idea out to all those schools. And the rest, I guess, is history.
Fantastic, Russell. I always love hearing that story because it's just so inspiring that something as simple as taking care of your plastic, being responsible, has led to a worldwide movement. So now I'd like to ask Irene, and Annie and I will take turns in these questions. But Irene, may I ask you, I'd like to know more about Ayyew. I'd like to know what it is. What is the position of Ayyew wisdom in your culture? And how do you see Ayyew fitting in with today's life, both over there and for a wider world?
Okay. But before I go to the question, can I add to the story of Russell? I just remembered things,
Sure.
that was so many years ago. But then, this is also crucial because I don't know if Russell can remember it, but I remember that I invited him since I came to know him first as a mandalic artist. So I invited him in a youth leadership training with the question of, we have so many plastics and I don't, I am against burning plastic. I am against, because as Russell mentioned it, but these plastics, or let's say this trash can still be useful. But how do we use it? So there is a question of how could we use these plastics, which are, when we see it, they are eyesores. They are not good to look at when they are scattered there, and they are a problem in society, as Russell mentioned a while ago, and not even good to the health, eyes, and everything. So the question was, how can we make this into something that is useful? So with Russell's help, I think we did this in 4 different portions of the province with around almost 1,000 already students, learners, wherein we looked into we made mandala arts using plastics. But the main question was, how can we use this in a way that they are not just there to be scattered? Okay, so those things started it started the brains working into how else could we use this. So when Russell came with that idea again of the Ecobricks, actually, we first talked about it in the bus. We have not seen Russell for so long, and then we met in the bus. And while he was at the back, and I was a little bit seated, maybe a seat further from him, we talked as if we owned the bus, and we were talking about plastics, Ecobricks, and that started it. That they're coming, they're coming with pie, made it more, no, and we started looking into how we could help uh, Bontoc and Mountain Province as a whole in solving the plastic problem, which made the Kalinga province, which is on the eastern portion of Mountain Province, sue them in court because of their plastics, because of their wastes. Now, so it became Bontoc and Mountain Province is the headwater of the Chico River. So and then in Bontoc, we have this portion where they put their wastes, their garbage, and burn their garbage right beside the river. So that was seen by Kalinga in Bontoc, and Mountain Province as a province was sued for polluting the river going down to um Kalinga. So that was the urgent problem that we have been facing. The many garbage is scattered around, and that finding a solution so that we will not be or so that Kalinga will not continue to demand from Mountain Province or anan. So we're trying to help in our own ways. And so that clicked, and we start, I am in charge as there, and I was also in charge of the campus leaders, or the Supreme Student Government or the Supreme Pupil Government over in the division level. So that is what we already have people, the most influential in our the children. So that started so we had, when Russell introduced that, even without funds, I said we have to make this happen. And with the help of Russell and Pi and of course, my superintendent then, we were able to teach all student representatives from the different municipalities, from the different schools, and they taught it in their school, and it became um, a flower that bloomed, an idea that bloomed all over Mountain Province. And so and then not only that, Russell was able to look into the women's group, in the market, and in the marketplace, or they call that where they sell their vegetables and sometimes it's so funny to note that when you go to buy, and they would you have to find the person selling, because they're all busy putting their putting the plastic trash in PET bottles, and it became a trend. In fact, Russell, they began selling it. They began, and we have a place in Bontoc that they have built using using PET bottles, using these Ecobricks. So it became a wildfire among the schools, and so that's it. So that started. It's when we talk of Ayyew, no. So relating to Ayyew in our language, I can hardly find an English word that could really translate it fully. Because if I translate it to in Filipino, sayang, if you are familiar with that word, it's not just sayang, or it's not just it's a word that would tell us that everything has to be taken care of. There's a use for all things. I remember even the pig manure. No? This is manure. We're talking of manure. Sorry. In my in our and then when we were kids, even pig manure are not just thrown around. They are really used. And we even have a ritual that we get this every year. These are taken from, so there's a pit where the pig manure goes, and then after a year, these are taken out. I mean, after some months, these are taken out, dried, and we have a time when it's about nearing planting time. We carry those to the field for it to be used. But there's a ritual that is that we have to do before we do that. And now it's looking into even and when I was a child, kids when they eat, they scatter and I scatter many and when we were kids, my grandfather would always say, rice is very, very precious in our place. Since it's very mountainous, you don't really find a very wide rice field. If you have, it's there is no, I have not seen a 1 hectare plain rice field. So if you have, if they prepare or if they have a field or if they have a rice field, usually there's more work related to it because they have to clean the side of the mountain. And sometimes it's funny, but it's true. You have to clean more than the space where you will plant. And so that idea, I mean, that reality, I think, was also embedded. So we have here our grandfather embedded the thought of everything is Ayyew, so don't ever waste food. So when you eat, kids eat and they scatter grains of rice. Nah? And he would always say, pick those up and eat them because those are very important. It's Ayyew if you just let it go. No, so I mean, just a grain of rice is considered Ayyew. So and this goes, and it's not only looking at those, but why do they consider that Ayyew? Because it's related to how it was produced. It's related to how our ancestors, if they really wanted rice, so our staple food actually in my own hometown before was not rice. When Russell came, it was already rice. When I was born, it was already rice. But more of kamote because kamote is sweet potato. Yeah. And that is easier to produce in my hometown than rice. And if you want rice before, you have to hike for many, many hours, even days, just to get to the lowlands to help them and then be paid with just a few cans or a can of rice, and you have to again carry that and bring it to my hometown. So that affected that idea. So one, it's like that, but then it's not just saying that it is very important, but it's also looking into there's a connection of everything that you have there, even the way it was produced, the way that it came to you. No? So that's it. I hope I can elaborate more on that as we go on with this activity. And so relating it to Ecobricks, the plastics came to my place. They are there. There are so many, and there's so much effort that went there. It's clogging, and so with that, we have to maximize the use of that. So it does not just end in canals. It does not just end uh, in rivers or in to be polluting or to be eyesores to us. It has to be to have its use. It's in Ayyew, there is never an end to the use of something. So even for us, when we die, we don't just die. We still have a use. No? So we become part of the earth. We become fertilizers. So, and we don't just end there. Still, we continue to thrive in another way. So that's also in how we see things. The use of anything never ends. So the use of plastic does not end when you use it and then it got torn and you cannot reuse it the way that you have used it already, but you have ways of reusing it or like you can upcycle it or you can use it in the Ecobricks. And again, even after it was used as an Ecobrick, there is another use to that later. So that is how Ayyew is. It is something that does not just, it's not just saying we have to care for it, we have to, but very much related to the past. I mean, where it came from and the future of the present, and then the future, where it will end, if it ever will end. But again, it does not end, so it goes back again to another thing. So I don't know if I am right if I say it's like it has a circle of or let's say mandalic like that. I don't know if that's mandalic. I am not sure. Russell, I think, can talk more of that. Okay, thank you. Or did I answer or did I leave something out?
That was perfect. The only other thing was and how do we see it within today's life? But I think you kind of answered that within the question. So thank you. I'm just very captivated because here in the Northern Hemisphere, we are so bad with our attitude to plastics and what we should do. And we have so much to learn from you.
Yeah.
Annie, you're next.
Thank you, sama. So I'm going to say express Indonesia. Saya juga sangat terpukau. But it's also, when you said the word sayang, Irene, is actually we have that concept. But I think you go deeper because it's not just, aduh sayangnya dibuang. So it's not just that, but because selalu connected with something else and then never end. And it's like everything is really like in a, circle and things like that. So hopefully this is really also fascinating for Indonesians because we have kind of similar, but this is new, kind of refresh us. Okay, I have continuation to that. I have a question for Russell. So it's again about the concept and value of Ayyew. Number one, Russ, like how did you find out about Ayyew? You've been there, and then how did you find out about it? And then how did you connect between Ayyew and Ecobricking, and kind of incorporate an Ecobricking? Because I didn't explain a little bit, but for the movement itself, it's like we put the Ayyew as a principle. It's not since the very beginning. It's like maybe 5 years ago, but how it started.
All right. Well, there's two aspects to this. First, in the 4 or 5 years that I was in the northern Philippines, I learned Kankanai. I could get by. However, I never came across the word Ayyew. And I never learned the intellectual concept of Ayyew until several years after I had returned back to Canada, and maybe by that time I made my way to Indonesia. Irene and I were working on an essay together about, I was consulting Irene about Igorot words, and she shared this word Ayyew with me. Now, the second aspect is that despite not learning the intellectual concept, I experienced Ayyew. The whole 4 or 5 years I was there, I experienced Igorot culture, their way of life. I observed, visited a lot of remote villages through Ecobricking and with Irene, and I had this experience. So when Irene started talking about this concept of Ayyew, automatically I got it. I got it because I'd already had the experience. Now, as Irene said, it's very difficult to translate the word Ayyew into English because we really just don't have an equivalent word. But more fundamentally, we don't have an equivalent concept. And this is why it struck me so much. And this is why I'm so grateful for the time I got to spend in the Northern Philippines, because I don't think I would ever have been able to grasp this without the experience. Sure, I could have read Irene's essays and her books and her reports, but I would never have been able to grasp the importance of this without the experience. Because while I was there, I saw all these people doing these crazy, creative, and industrious things. Nagaguts is the word they have for it, with plastic to transform it. So in the mines, they would take the dynamite cable, which, and back in my country, would just throw away. They would take it and they'd weave it into these intricate bags and things like that, making purses and mats with the wrappers, all sorts of really industrious things. So there was that, but then there was also the gardening. So, but again, gardening is the wrong word. Here, when Irene is speaking and we're talking about the Igorot way of life, it's quite difficult because we use these certain words and yet they don't quite mean what they actually mean in Igorot culture. Gardening, for example, is in my country, it's you've got a nice little square of land in your backyard and you put some plants in, you've got some pots. In Sagada, it means climbing a mountain, working with the shovel for weeks and weeks, and Irene said to clear the mountainside. So to get the mountain level, to build a terrace, to get rocks up from the river, to build supports, to build irrigations and all that, that's gardening. And it's, let me tell you, it's a lot more than potted plants. It's fundamentally this transformation of a space from something that, okay, it was a mountainside before, but now it's a place that generates food for humans and generates a home for mudfish and snails and frogs and crabs. Not necessarily, of course, because here in Indonesia, we've got rice terraces also, and in other parts of the Philippines, they've got rice terraces. And again, here's the difference. In certain parts of the Philippines, the rice terraces are made so that you maximize the production of rice. In Sagada, when you might make a rice terrace, sure, you try and get the rice, but if you're doing it just to maximize the output, then it means the mudfish aren't living, the snails aren't there, the crabs aren't there, and you don't have this rich ecosystem that the Igorots are proud of. Like I would walk with my farmer friends through the rice terraces, and they would proudly point out the rice terraces that were thriving with this biodiverse little ecosystem that had rice output, but it also gave a home for these other creatures that also served for food for humans, but then also helped other creatures live, and everyone was just happier in these spaces. And they were very proud of this in distinction from these more industrial terraces that you saw in other parts of the country. So when Irene first started talking about this within the scope of the IPED program, Indigenous Peoples Education Curriculum, is that it, Irene? You can put it in the chat what you were working on. It was a government program to get Indigenous values out to the areas that have a certain Indigenous people. and indigenous culture. And so Irene was spearheading this, and she'd come up with these different terms and concepts. And it was Ayyew that first caught my attention and Annie's attention too, because Annie spent some time in the Philippines. And she actually had the honor of hearing a presentation by one of Irene's staff where they talked about Irene. So immediately this resonated with my experience of the Philippines, but then also what we were doing with Ecobricks, because I realized finally what distinguished our movements here in Asia from the movements in South America and Central America. As many of you guys know, people have been ecobricking, or people have been putting plastic in a bottle for a long time, since the early 2000s. The early 2000s in Guatemala and Nicaragua to make bottle bricks or ecobricks. And that movement has been very strong there, and it came over to different parts of the world. But there was something different about what we had going that was emerging from Mountain Province. And then traveled to Indonesia, resonated with so many of you Indonesians, and really saw it go. And it struck me that it was this concept of Ayyew that underlay our work and our efforts, and the philosophy that was seeing the technology emerge and spread. This idea that not only are we preventing pollution, not only are we preventing waste. Now, here's again the difference and challenge with the words. Irene used the word waste, and she used the word sayang. Sayang is a much better word to grasp this, and I think Indonesians, you can appreciate this because it means it's a shame. It's a shame that the plastic is not being used for more. It's a shame that it's causing pollution, but it's a shame really that its utility, its potential is not being grasped. And so with ecobricking, what we're doing is we're taking plastic and giving even more value by transforming it to do something else. So it's more than circular. And this is we're getting ahead of ourselves now, but it's even more than circular. Mandalic is kind of the right word because we're raising consciousness. But in the Earthen Ethics, we use the word spiral now to talk about how we put the matter on a course that enriches. It enriches the space. It enriches the material. It enriches the ecosystems around us. I'll leave it at that, Annie, if you want to follow up.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
I mean, not really, Anne, but I mean, it's just an idea that came to me with regards to the indigenous people's education. You know, at that time, it's funny to note that we indigenous peoples did not appreciate our own, our own philosophies, our own views, our own principles, wisdom. And it is only when, I mean, we do contextualize, we do, but I remember that it being the coordinator for it in our province, which is made up of 99 point, maybe 98, and yeah, I remember it's 99.98% indigenous peoples. We had a hard time convincing people of the wisdom of our own culture, of our own what we have of our own culture, our own wisdom, our own principles, philosophies. And it took us a long time. And even when I left our province as I was assigned in another province, that is still the struggle. Okay? And until now, actually, it's still a struggle. But then I do believe that what we have started also helped us appreciate our own wisdom. No? And so I remember that in Ayyew, no, one of the things that we looked into, because when we implemented Ecobricks in Mountain Province and there were no more plastics around, uh, the learners started to buy junk food. so that they can use the plastics and put it in the Ecobricks, which we had again because of the principle that we are, that I mean, we have not discovered that word Ayyew. I mean, we have not discovered. We have been practicing it, as Russell said, but we have not yet put the right word. And we have been practicing the principles of Ayyew, but it was only later when we pointed out, okay, this is the and then actually I don't know why I have not thought of it earlier, but the principles we have been practicing. So when we saw that, I mean that negative impact on our learners, we had to also include it the module that we have been preparing, that the connectivity of things, it does not mean to say that you create more waste, so that you the idea of the Ecobricks is not for us, or the principle behind the Ecobricks is for us to, one of the principles is for us to we have a way of putting our waste and not to create waste to make it. I mean, so it's something that no. And even when the first time that the DepEd CAR, or DepEd Cordillera Administrative Region, when they adopted this, na, they made a contest now, or we made a wherein the contest was schools that would produce the most. Na. And at that time, it was already, and Mountain Province did not win that. And I'm glad. Why? Because at that time, we already finished. I mean, it was already our second year of implementation. So it's good that they did not win. It means to say, one, they have already lower or not a very big volume of waste, plastic wastes anymore. And so we have already used it. And the one that won, I've been assigned at that place after, and I saw that they really should have won because of the volume of waste seen in the environment. So you see, I mean, when we saw that it's not giving, our learners are already creating more waste. Just to we have to include that portion, the section on its relationship to our health. Okay, so when we included that, actually the principle or the wisdom of Ayyew was not yet, the word Ayyew was not yet in our minds. Okay.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. This is like something that's actually so relevant to Indonesian phenomenon about the ecobricks too in the beginning, and then even now the new ones. But okay, I try to keep going with this schedule a bit and the agenda because it's just so fascinating. Yes. Okay, then we are going to the next section of the agenda, which is about the book. So it's about the book. So maybe many of you knows that Russell and Irene, they co-writing this book. And it is really nice. Earthen Ethics, a theory of green and gray. And in there is the word Tractatus Ayyew, book 1. So I believe it's going to be book 2, book 3, or we are going to hear more. But there is, beside the titles, the Earthen Ethics, there's a bigger title, kind of. It's called Tractatus Ayyew. So this is something that yeah, we want to know more. And oh, Lucy, this is actually your part. So can I just jump? Okay, so I want to ask Russell then that what is Tractatus Ayyew? Why do you use that word? Is this a book or is this something? In Indonesia, Tractatus is like traktat. So maybe like when we were kids, we know in school that is traktat. So what? Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
Russ, if you can explain that.
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tractatus is a Latin word. All right. Before I get into the meaning of the title, I'd like to pick up on something that Irene said that is actually really important. She mentioned how many of her people don't
Mm,
appreciate the indigenous values that they have,
mm,
understand the values that they have, and that she really, when she was implementing her iPad curriculum, which was just fabulous, she really struggled. There was so much resistance to implement this because so many Igorots saw these traditional values as being just that traditional, old, archaic, obsolete in light of the modern world. I've had the opportunity to live in the lands of several indigenous peoples in the Yukon where I grew up. That was the Northern Shoshone people. And when I grew up there, I learned very little about them and their culture or concepts. And again, when I lived in the northern Philippines, I had to really make an effort to learn the language, and it took me a while to learn these concepts. And this is a legacy, unfortunately, around the world of colonialization, of Western powers, for the most part, coming in, subjugating people, pushing down their ideas, and pushing forward their ideas to dominate people's minds and cultures so they can be colonized. The Philippines, unfortunately, is a great example of this in the sense that the Spanish were tremendously successful in their colonization of the southern Philippines. To this day, it's very difficult to find the indigenous languages or tribes because for 300 years, they were systematically oppressed. And part of that oppression was making people feel ashamed of their own culture. And that legacy we still see and experience. Irene struggles against it in Mountain Province. While I was there, there was a few other white guys, not many, but one or two that were living there. One guy, Irene, maybe you remember his name. You could put in the chat for me. There was a baker, French guy who had been stranded there in Sagada for 17 years. He'd come on a bike trip, lost his passport, and he just ended up living there for 17 years baking bread. And he was famous because he would go around wearing the tapestry of the Igorots. He would wear their woven bamboo backpacks. He would wear these crazy, well, not crazy, but crazy cool pine needle hats that protect against the rain. Really, really traditional stuff. I got to know him a little bit, and I asked him about this. Why are you doing this? Because Sagada now is kind of modern. People wear pants and normal Western clothes as they go around. And he was like, the Igorots, they don't realize now, these modern Igorots, they don't realize how lucky they are and how blessed and how rich their culture is. They have their own weaving traditions, their own clothing technology, their own weather protection technology, and for some reason, they're ashamed of this. So I want to walk around wearing this stuff to remind them that this is cool. This is amazing, amazing stuff. It's organic. It's not based on polymers that won't degrade. It's an incredible technology that they should be proud of and not ashamed of. And so that experience of this guy stuck with me as a philosopher, someone with a background in philosophy, as I got to know these concepts, that the humble Igorots are reluctant to share with the world because they have this colonial legacy of shame that's been put upon them. And being someone who has had the blessing to be able to live with indigenous peoples around the world and recognize that, oh my goodness, the values and ideas they have are absolutely critical for humanity to emerge from this age of depletion and destruction into an age of regeneration and enrichment. It's absolutely critical that we learn from indigenous people the way that they used to interact and live with the world and change the ways that our modern culture is doing things. And so this is the book that we're writing. And this is why I'm so proud of my friendship with Irene over all this time and our collaboration. The title, Tractatus, is Latin. The word Ayyew is Kankanai, it's Igorot. Tractatus is a term used by Western philosophers for a treatise. A treatise, a tract, a tractata, is an exposition on a particular philosophical concept where you go deep into something. Now, there's a tradition of this, and there's several important philosophers who have written tractatus. Tractata, I don't know what the plural is, Tractati. Spinoza is one of the most famous. He wrote the Tractatus Logica Philosophicus, which came out in the 15th century and played a big role in undermining the domination of the Catholic Church because it questioned the dominating religious view of the world, which was very, very oppressive at the time. And so Spinoza wrote this Tractatus. He was punished for it and he suffered a lot because of it, but it ended up transforming the way people think. Wittgenstein also wrote a Tractatus on language, and that was also a very famous and very significant thing. My brother, who is studying philosophy, he's like, Russell, you can't use the word Tractatus because it means that you're saying this is such an important topic. Tractatus is kind of restricted in philosophy. You only use it for the most serious things and important things. And I was like, no, Chris, this is important. This indigenous values need that type of respect. We need to give it the full philosophical, academic, intellectual respect that we can. And thus, we took the rather bold step for philosophers to call something the Tractatus Ayyew. And again, the title is significant because it has this Western concept and this indigenous concept. And they go side by side on equal terms, on equal level in the title, representing the coming together of the Western and the indigenous way of thinking as equals, very important. And it also is symbolic of Irene and I, myself coming from a colonial Western settler background, and Irene coming from an Igorot, indigenous, ancestral background, and are the coming together and merging of our two wisdom traditions.
Fabulous. Thank you, Russell. So, Irene, hearing that, how do you feel about the title? What does it mean to you, the fact we have this book and that there is such a bold title statement with it?
Okay. I would like to start it with a story. And this happened really when ecobricking became a fad. There was a time it became a fad in some parts of the Philippines, especially on the northern part. And when tourists came and saw what we were doing, there's one that particularly came from one in the southern Luzon part, okay? Near Manila, near the capital. And he said, I cannot remember his name anymore, but he has this group, and his point was that they will make ecobricks in Manila or in a place near Manila, Laguna, and they will make ecobricks and then transport it all the way to Mountain Province accordingly to help us. Right? So looking into the it's again taking ecobricks in not in an using the Ayyew wisdom, but and I had to respond to him, which I think he did not take positively. I don't know if he realized it, but I had to tell him that he cannot do that. Because in ecobricking, it's a way of managing our own wastes. And if he is going to travel and bring ecobricks all the way, which is, as Russell said, 12 hours from Manila. So from his place, that will be an additional 2 hours, 14 hours to our place. Then we became their garbage, their garbage bags, or let's say their garbage pits, okay? And I told him that it is not just eco-bricking for the sake of eco-bricking only, but we have to look into, again, as I said a while ago, where did this all come from? We have a problem, an eyesore of garbage, and then you take them, make them into eco bricks, and then create more pollution by having to bring it, traveling no, and making more pollution as you bring it to our place. And then so the connectivity is not already there. Okay? So I look at the title, no, Tractatus, no, is yung we have to really look. I mean, in the practice of eco-bricking, we have to really look into the principles, the philosophies of why we have to do this. We don't just focus on the result, but we look into the process. And we don't just look into the process, but we have to really look into the side effects and everything that goes with it. And that is Ayyew. Okay? We have to be very, very keen on this, because once we remove that, we remove those principles, we remove those philosophies that is holding the very practice of eco-bricking that we have, we have started, and we remove the soul of eco-bricking. So, Tractatus Ayyew, I know, very intriguing actually. And actually, I had a little discussion with Russell with regards to this. And we were supposed to print our Philippine edition, but I had to hold it on first before, because as I told Russell, people might question me about what Tractatus is, and I might not be able to expound more on it. But I think with this, I think I have not really. Maybe I'm just hesitant, or maybe I'm just I have that inferiority complex on this. No, I'm not a philosopher. So but the practice is there, and having both a Western word combined with an indigenous concept. Thank you, Russell, for that, actually. And I was awakened by your response to your brother. I mean, it opened another eye, you know. Yeah, and really, it's something that we have to look into. So the what I was telling a while ago, I would just like to end it again with another story of which is a reality. When plastics came, we have Tupperware, we have whatever, when they came, we looked at it as if they are, and I remember that we have friends who have to buy very expensive plastics and put it in their shelves and do not use it because they are regarded as something for special occasions like that. And we discarded all our wooden bowls, wooden kitchen utensils. And we discarded our, coconut shells were used as bowls, as cups, no? And remember, my grandmother had so many sacks of them, and I did not really treasure them before. So now I couldn't find them anywhere anymore. We easily discarded what we had, and we looked at it as something inferior. Even bamboo woven materials that we had, we used to. It was so easy for us to discard them and change them with what we thought were better goods, better utensils, better things to use. Okay. But it's and then also but then it was too late for us. Nowadays we realized that this actually we have discarded the better ones to something that gives us cancer, that gives us so many things. I mean, we have so many questions nowadays of why why people now are easily, or why do we get so many unexplained diseases, unexplained, the causes of cancer, and yet we have not seen. And sometimes I see people who get angry with so many things, yet we have not looked into the connection of our small acts. Okay? It's just like what we have done with our bamboo utensils, with our wooden utensils, that we just have discarded them and changed them. And even that goes even to agriculture. The things that are being, I sometimes I laugh looking at it now, because what the government is promoting now in the Philippines is organic farming. But actually, that was our practice. Those were our practices before. But because we have the synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides that made farming easier, no? Easier. I mean, with us, the opposite. We just discarded those practices. And now we are coming back, reclaiming these things. And what is very, very sad to note is that we cannot just say it's organic. If we practice what our ancestors had been practicing before, we cannot just say it's organic without a certification from the government. Again, something that is sad, something, but it's real. No? So again, going back to the question is with Tractatus Ayyew, it's looking into the philosophies of things, looking into the connectivity of things. And what's wonderful is a perspective of from the perspective of a Westerner with that of, or the, let's say, sorry, Russell, colonizer with the colonized. Though I am proud to say that a while ago I said I'm an apply. Apply is a smaller group and the bigger group is the Igorots. Okay, so actually in the northern Philippines, we the Igorots we have this, that we are proud to say that even if the Spaniards stayed in the Philippines for 300 years, they were able to, let's say, conquer most of the Philippines. They may have come to the Cordilleras, but they were unable to subjugate us. So one thing we are proud of is we are this group who are very independent. So we love our independence so much. And so it's a perspective of the colonizer with that of the colonized and putting them together to create a something or to evolve into something which we can practice these days. Okay, so the perspectives, the philosophies, the principles. Okay? I hope I made myself clear.
Thank you. I just to hear you speak is and your words are really moving. And I see so many things that have gone wrong with the world, and we really need this type of work to create a better place for everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like, wow. Uh, okay, about the book and going back to Russell, it's Earthen Ethics. It's like etik bumi gitu ya kalau bahasa Indonesia itu etika bumi. So it's about Earthen Ethics. Can you explain in a short version? So because okay, we have 20 something minutes left, but it's like in maybe 5 minutes, and so that all of us really want to read more. But it's like give us that, like what is Earthen Ethics?
All right. Well, in this day and age, one of the pressing questions is, what do we do about all this pollution that our modern culture is creating, all this ecological depletion? This is a question that everyone here has been asking of themselves and their lives and their countries and their cultures. How can we be better serve the environment? How can we better take care of the planet? How can we make sure that our lives are green, that what we are doing is green and good, and that we're not part of this depletion and pollution that's been going on? This is precisely the question that got Irene and I going on this book. So Irene mentioned the folks in Manila who wanted to send their Ecobricks up to us. She mentioned the folks who were consuming more junk food in order to get the plastic to make Ecobricks. And so, yes, Irene and I saw these wonderful results of the ecobricking throughout Mountain Province, where the waste was disappearing, the plastic wasn't getting into the rivers, it was getting put into ecobricks, and all of a sudden villages had a solution. We saw this fantastic side, but then we began to see that there was also a dark side to it. And so we asked ourselves, okay, well, what is good ecobricking? What is, and then the deeper question is, what is a true environmental solution? What is something that is green? What does green really mean? So this is where the principles come in that Irene mentioned. And this is where we can learn and gain so much from the indigenous wisdom of our people, who have, one, managed to get past the colonization of the Spanish, and so hold this legacy of generations going very, very far back in the history of the Philippines archipelago that was lost. Most of the southern Philippines, the cultures and the languages were just obliterated. And so too around Southeast Asia. So the Igorots are one of these few unsubjugated indigenous peoples who have lived in the same place, not depleted it, not exploited all the resources, but they've in fact enriched the area where they've lived. And so ideas like Ayyew, the core concept of Ayyew, is absolutely critical for us moderns, because the answer that our modern culture gives to the question is insufficient. What answers do we have? What terms do we have to answer the question of how do we take care of the ecosystems around us? Well, we've got sustainability, we've got circular, we've got recycling, we've got organic, like Irene mentioned. The thing with these ideas is they're emerging from the Western way of thinking, a Western way of thinking that has a legacy that goes back centuries, if not millennia, back through to Western Europe, to the Romans, to the Greeks, and this tangent of seeing humans as separate from the rest of the biosphere. Humans are separate, they're special, they're central, and then there's the natural world around them that humans need to take care of, but they also need to subjugate, and it's a resource, and okay, let's make use of nature as the best we can. Then if humans touch it, then it's no longer nature. So we've got these concepts in the Western way of seeing the world around us, the biosphere, in which the best that we can do is not to harm it as much. No matter what us humans do to nature, it's going to degrade nature. Because as soon as you touch nature as a human, then it's no longer nature because there's a human there and it's been touched. That's the paradigm of Western thinking. And so the best that we can do is reduce the harm that our lives, that our societies, that our cultures, that our products, that our services make. Irene's way of seeing the world is fundamentally different. And again, this is why I'm so proud of our collaboration, is because as you guys can glean from Irene and the way she's talking and the stories that she's got and her culture, there's some really profound stuff there. Whereas my role as an English speaker, someone who studied philosophy, is I can try to translate those into words and terms and concepts that fit in to the modern way of seeing things so that we can change and move on from it. Fundamentally, getting to this concept that humans are not separate from nature, that the concept of nature is fallacious, wrong, it's an error to begin with. Think of nature and humans as separate. To think of even nature, the word nature, Irene have a chapter in our book called Nature's Fallacy, where we argue that whole concept just needs to go. Once we can get around that, then humans can enrich the ecosystems that they're part. This is something that is our human potential, and I believe it as our destiny as a earthling creature species in this biosphere, that we have a role to play in making it an even richer, more abundant common home for all of us.
Thank you, Russell. So, Irene, how do you see this book's relevance and position in your work in the local Philippines movement and in the global context?
Just a while ago, while we were on our way from an event that we had, we were talking on the way, and we were discussing how Tractatus Ayyew, the philosophies and the principles and the wisdom can also be practiced in our schools. Because we were talking, the person I was talking to was, disaster risk reduction management officers became a fad in our country. I say fad since there's so many municipalities. They already have their DRRM officers, okay? And even DepEd has its own DRRM officer. But then we were discussing that the way that we are looking in or putting action into things or into disasters or those leading to disasters are more of reactive. Okay? So with Tractatus Ayyew, if we start from where we came from, no, and then relate it to our present, whatever that is. Whatever that is, like we have places that are already being so prone to floods, to big landslides, okay? And where did that start if we look into it, the present, and where will it lead to? And if we apply the principle that we have been talking about, we can really see that it's more proactive. So if in my line of work we deal with children, we deal with educators, if they will also read the Tractatus Ayyew and practice the principles that are there in whatever line of work that they have, then maybe we can have a better place to live. I also remember that these days, and I'm sad to relate it, but I have to for the purpose of that last year in our schools, I am holding 200 schools, no? In our schools, we had 9 suicide cases last year. And then we had our first for this year a few weeks ago. Oh no, last week. Oh no, the other week. But so looking into this, we were discussing why are these rising? Okay, so we're not only talking here of so again, we go back to the wisdom of Ayyew, okay? We're not only talking here of garbage, of eco-bricking, but if we look into these things that are happening, okay? Why are this happening? Okay, because we have one of those reasons that we have pointed out is that we have already became or we have lost the soul of or like our learners are taking already their lives like so how do I term it? I don't I lost words. But we have already left the like in the Ayyew part, okay? The Ayyew wisdom. Okay. We have already we do not already have the Ayyew wisdom because even in our life we say your life is Ayyew. So if we are only there living as yourself, you don't know your connection to your past and your connection to your present, it's so easy to forget the reason why you are there. And that could also lead us to learners or to people who can easily just give up their lives. Okay, so these are things, these are things I remember one time Russell was asking me if we have a term for earth. Okay, and it took me a hard time to think of but the only word that comes to my mind is batawa. Okay, and in batawa, or it's everything there. You cannot really separate it as only the land, only the plants, only the living and non-living. No, but when you say batawa, it includes everything that is there. So it's also the same with us as persons. When you look at yourself, no, it's not only you, okay, but everything, okay, and that includes the very reason why you are there in the first place. And that goes back also to eco-bricking. If we remove, or if we remove its connection to, let's say, why plastics are there and where they are to go after, if we remove that, we remove the soul of why we started eco-bricking. So I hope this is one thing that we will have to always consider when we do these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene.
If I
I
could just jump in to add to Irene there, because she brings up the despair and the depression of the current generation. There's so many people thinking this way. And in contrast to that, one experience that Irene and I had, and that many of the folks here have, I see Setio and Shanti, Paksetiaji, you guys have done earth building with us. You guys have touched the earth with us to build with Ecobricks. This is something that Irene and I did with some of the schools, as we had earth building projects, making snake benches and gardens and play parks, food forest play parks with earth and Ecobricks. And it was a profound experience for me to work with the children and touch the earth, to jump on, mash it with your feet and make the cob balls and put it with the Ecobricks. That was such a tremendously connecting experience where we literally reconnect to the earth through touching, a very visceral experience. And it's not a coincidence that we call it the Earthen Ethics. There's a bit of a play on the word there that the word earthen refers to our planet, but it also refers to earthen, as in English, has a connotation for pottery, for cob, for adobe, things that are earthen are made from earth. It's all connected, right? And as eco-brickers, this is an important part of the movement, is building with earthen building. And so the Earthen Ethics connects very directly to that aspect of the Ecobrick movement. Okay, sorry, Lucie, just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think we have a worldwide epidemic of young people taking their lives. And I do think it all stems to not being valued. And it just makes this work even more important. And it's needed everywhere. Annie?
Okay. Oh, we can discuss this more and more and further. And then it's like so relevant to almost everything. And I believe also in Indonesian context, it's like kind of have a little bit similarities. And then it's just like so fascinating. So, here 9:30 Indonesian time, which is 10:30 for Irene time. We already have 90 minutes, but I was just already like writing in a chat that is so important. This is so fascinating. We want to go more. So I offer for more, like 15 more minutes, I think. Is that okay? And then I check again if it's we need to finish after 15 more minutes, or we continue again. So what do you think, guys? Okay, Russell, okay.
Okay, it's okay for me.
Yeah. And I also see, I think Liz and Mike here, they are Filipinas trainers, which is so nice. Okay, that's still about the books. It's actually about who's the target of the books, but we can discuss a bit more about that. Now I want to jump to about the collaboration. And we already discussed about this. It's like how you guys met and how the first time like Russell initiate this but I still want to kind of hear the highlight again. And Russell already explained about Western and non-Western, Western and indigenous, and then male and female, I believe. And then it's like this. But I think that's one question that I still want to hear, like kind of the highlight is like, why did you do a collaboration for this book? It's again, same question, and it's maybe kind of similar answer from you. Why is this collaboration so important? And then how was the collaboration? How was the process content-wise, and how is that? Because it's so intriguing for me. Like I love reading books and I love writings, and then writing to people is like always something that's, how do we do that? How did you guys do it? So Russell, if you can start, please.
Yeah, so as we mentioned, this process of writing the Earthen Ethics has unfolded over the last 10 years. It's been a very fluid, natural unfolding. Irene and I, from the very get-go, have shared this passion about plastic, about not seeing it polluting. That has emerged into this discussion of indigenous values and ideas and concepts, particular Igorot ones. And it evolved very naturally. Like, again, I wasn't even all that aware of how influenced the Ecobrick movement was by the Igorot way of seeing the world until I tried to write about it. And then I contacted Irene and we started talking about these things. One of the first experiences I had that really woke me up that we were onto something is realizing in Kankanai that there was no word for waste or for trash. So Irene's talking about trash and waste. And if she were to speak Filipino or Kankanai, she would use the word basura, which is the Spanish word for waste and trash. But if she was to speak Kankanai as people did maybe a generation ago, she would really struggle. She struggles to find the word. We've discussed this. There's like no word for the concept of something whose use no longer exists. There's just no word for it. It's something that has come in through the colonization process of the Spanish, contact with the Western world, contact with these Western materials that have arrived that didn't have a plan for them. But prior to that, there was no concept of things being useless. Irene shared the story about the pig pen. We've talked about the pig pen a lot because it's so simple having a pig in your backyard, but it is this fundamental solution for waste. You give everything to the pig, it transforms into something richer, and that goes to your fields, and those fields get enriched by that whole process. Just to share again a little bit of the difference in, because what we're talking about here is a really fundamental difference in seeing the world between the indigenous and the Western way. We talk about how indigenous cultures have something to share. We've got to learn from indigenous wisdom, but this is it. This is what we need to learn is are these fundamental transformations in our cosmology, the way we see the world and our place in it. There were some missionaries who arrived in my town of Sabangan, and they decided to try and introduce a way to deal with to make compost by grinding up plants using a grinder to make compost. And so they did this, and everyone kind of was polite and watched how they made compost by grinding things up. But after they left, no one followed them. Why? Because they already had pigs that did this thing. And the pigs did it better without energy inputs, without gasoline, without oil, without machines. They already had this way that was even more effective, energy efficient, and enriching. So from these conversations Irene and I have had over time, it's slowly gone deeper and deeper and deeper into realizing, one, that, okay, there's this great Ayyew concept in Igorot thinking. And then also seeing that, okay, well, in other indigenous languages and cultures, there's a parallel. There's parallels in the way they see things. So that's one of the realizations we had, and we write about in the Tractatus, is, for example, the First Nations, the indigenous people of the Americas. They also had this commonality in the way they saw the world. And as a consequence, they enriched their continent. They didn't deplete it or destroy the ecosystems. They systematically enriched the continent over tens of thousands of years until the Europeans arrived and got to, then things changed. But that's another story. Okay, I'll pass it over to Irene because I've talked a lot here.
Yeah. Actually, looking back or thinking it over, I have to thank Russell a lot, no? Because he has this knack of I just tell stories. He would ask me questions and I would answer him. And he has that knack of putting my long story into just a word, or and then so it started with, and then he would say, oh, and then he would ask me, how is this? How do you say this? And then we would go deeper into discussing about that. But working on the Tractatus Ayyew, yes, I think it's already the third that we have been working on, because we have been working on the modules on Ecobricks.
Yeah.
No, of course, I have to admit that it's more actually of Russell's work. No? But the way that we have worked together, actually the module, if I know you have already you already know the background of that, it was a work of people from different parts of the world. Actually, it was only Russell and I who were seeing who when he comes to see me in the office or in Sagada. when he comes to see me, and we just sit down for a few minutes and then talk over things, and then for a long time we'll not be seeing each other again. But when we see each other, we have so many ideas. But it was only the two of us most of the time who are talking face to face. But the rest of the team are from different parts of the world. The one Elte Buron actually is a Filipino, but he's more in the US than in the Philippines. It was not something that new to us, no? But so when we, with the Tractatus Ayyew, there is still that, even if I have a very long narrative, Russell can make it into a very more concise, more and I mean, it's so easy for us to be elaborating or make and most of the time he was the one who makes things more concise. I was more of saying it in so many words, the typical, but that's it. And since we have started working online, working online with other people before, it was easy for us to work together. Using no, well, you were in Indonesia when we we decided to do, but you started that essay when you were still in Mountain Province, I remember. So so it was more of me looking into putting more words, putting examples, looking, and then it's more of him interpreting what I was saying. So I think that's more of the story. It was really a collaboration. If now that when I was reading the final, when I say the final output, I don't know. I cannot see there where where my work is and his work are. Of course, I see more of Russell, but you cannot really pinpoint na this is only I worked on this. It's more of Russell, but there's that you cannot really separate it. Okay?
It's kind of like
So
a
that's the
house,
beauty
Irene,
of collaborating of
when
this collaboration.
it's kind of like a house, right? There's a foundation
Yeah.
that you can't see, and then there's the fancy top on the top that you see. You see the house itself, but the foundation, which is what you've really provided in your culture and your people's wisdom tradition has provided, that's down there holding the fort together.
Yeah. Mm.
Wow, nice. So beautiful. That's how also I see like, wow, the collaboration has been there since the very beginning, and then male and female, Western and indigenous, and it's just the different angle, different perspective like coming from. So nice, so beautiful. I think that's somehow all the questions that we have for this event, and well, now is 18 minutes past. And I still want to open a session for like 10 minutes question answer. If anyone wants to ask or to Irene or Russell. And so that's now teman-teman. Siapa saja kalau ada pertanyaan, ada tanggapan, boleh untuk satu atau dua, kita ada 10 menit, kemudian baru nanti closing. But just like when Irene said about the module, right? It's you mean like the module of the starter workshop, the all the documents started like about the Ecobrick, right, Irene? So teman-teman,
The Vision Ecobrick
yeah,
Alliance.
okay. So I just want to translate a little bit. Jadi teman-teman yang Indonesia, kalau tadi Irene tuh bilang modul itu adalah yang dokumen atau file awal banget tentang materi workshop perkenalan Ecobrick. Nah, Irene tuh sejak dari awal merancang itu bareng dengan Ras. Okay, so two questions from you guys, and I will just pass either Russell or Irene. Thank you. Boleh ditulis di chat, boleh dalam bahasa Indonesia.
Boleh bertanya langsung?
Boleh.
Oh, baik.
Sudirman, please.
Iya, tapi dalam bahasa Indonesia nih.
Oke.
Iya, saya sangat tertarik. Terima kasih Mas Russell dengan Mbak Irene. Saya tidak bisa menangkap dengan baik semua yang dikatakan, meskipun ada terjemahannya. Tapi saya penasaran dengan buku yang dihasilkan dari kolaborasi itu tentang etik bumi. Saya sudah menjalankan juga Ecobrick sudah 5 tahun, dan bagi saya juga pengalaman yang sangat menarik karena penuh tantangan di tempat saya itu. Ini sesuatu yang tidak menarik untuk orang, tidak menarik, tidak diminati ya. Dan saya juga melihat kita saat ini ketika Zoom ini, kalau tidak salah di grup trainer Indonesia itu ada berapa banyak orang, tapi yang tergabung untuk mendengar lebih jauh ini saya tidak tahu hanya berapa orang. Ya. Jadi memang tidak menarik barang ini untuk banyak orang. Dan satu pertanyaan mungkin untuk Mas Rasa dan juga Mbak Iren, ada yang mengatakan kepada saya seperti ini, dan saya terus terang sedikit bingung untuk menjawabnya karena dia bilang begini, kenapa kamu repot membuat seperti itu? Bumi ini sudah berumur sekian juta ratus tahun begitu, sudah lama sekali. Dan bumi itu bisa menyembuhkan dirinya sendiri. Jadi kamu tidak usah repot dengan itu. Saya jadi sedikit tersentak dan juga bingung sedikit. Loh, benarkah seperti itu? Maksud saya,
Oke.
saya kira cukup pertanyaannya ya, jelas itu saja. Jadi
Oke,
mohon pencerahan tentang hal ini. Terima kasih.
terima kasih. Did you get it, Russell, or not? Okay, so Sudirman is one of Indonesian trainers based in Sulawesi, which is Sulawesi is not too far from
Ya,
Philippines, actually.
Sulawesi Selatan, Sulawesi
Oh
Barat.
yeah, Sulawesi Barat. Yeah. So he's been eco-breaking for 5 years. He enjoyed this conversation, but it's actually not 100% because of the translation. But it's like from his experiences, he's been making eco-break. He's also kind of sharing eco-bricks with the communities in different communities. But one thing that some people like they try, but after that they stop making eco-brick. So eco-brick is not that appealing. Eco-brick is not something that is like make people want to do it more and again and again and again. It's like not interesting. And then one person commented uh, to him says like, why you bother making eco-bricks? Bumi or the earth is so old, like million, 100 million years, and Bumi will somehow can heal itself. And so there is kind of also belief that about the earth can heal itself with whatever happened on it. So, and he's sometimes confused. He's like, and then it's just like want to hear from you guys about these things. What do you think about this? One is about the challenges. That is like this movement is somehow challenging sometimes. But the second one is also that kind of belief was some people think that, yeah, Bhumi can heal, the earth can heal itself. So why you bother making something? Okay, Russell and Irene, please.
Okay.
Thanks, Sudirman.
Would you like to start?
Sure, I guess I could. So Paksiriman, thank you. It's a good question, and it's a good observation by folks that indeed the earth can heal. What we do in the Tractatus Ayyew, what we do in the Earthen Ethic is we go way back. We tell the story of the earth because plastic and the story of the earth are intertwined. They go together. This is one of our realizations that Irene and I had as we reflected on plastic, is that plastic, indeed, it's made from oil, and oil is made from 300 million years ago when there were many prehistoric forests on Earth and dinosaurs, right? And those got collapsed and pressed down, and that's turned into the oil we have now that turns into the plastic. So it's absolutely crucial to know the story of the earth in order to be able to answer the question of what we should do with our plastic. Because when we look at the story of the earth, we see that the earth took carbon that was loose in the atmosphere. So 500 million years ago, There was so much CO2 in the atmosphere that it was very, very hot. The climate was unstable. But over time, the Earth took that carbon out, put it into biomass. That biomass lived and died. And then over time, it was concentrated and compressed and contracted and kept out of the atmosphere so that the Earth's climate could stabilize, more biodiversity could flourish. And here we are today, us humans in our civilization. We can learn from this. We can learn from the Earth's example of the way that the Earth managed its carbon so that we, as Earthlings, can do the same thing so that we have the same results of enrichment of biodiversity in our ecosystems and biosphere. So yeah, this is the premise. This is one of the fundamental ideas of the Earthen Ethics, is following the Earth's example. We observe that the concept of Ayyew is a word for the Earth's example. What the Igorots do in their land and how they maintain their ecosystems and work in their ecosystems and enrich their ecosystems is exactly the same spiral dynamic that the Earth has used over the last 4 billion years to enrich and make our current biosphere. Okay, that would be my answer. Semoga jelas. Irene, do
Okay.
you want to say something?
Yeah.
Terima kasih.
You know, I truly feel what you are saying because that is also what I observed here. But again, it's just like a tree. We're fascinated with the fruit when the fruits are there. Okay? But when we cut down the tree and you don't see the leaves, you don't see the fruit, we are not much interested with it already. However, even if we cut the tree, we did not cut the roots, we didn't remove it from its roots, it will soon it will still again. And so the point is, the principles that we have discussed, the Earthen Ethics, that we have been talking here, I think it's hard, and most people would not take it appealing. It's not an appealing play to to most, and then it's very but we have to also make them understand the very principles, the very philosophies that we and the if I relate it with the tree, it's the roots are those philosophies, the Earthen Ethics itself, that it is what we and this is not easy. I know I'm an educator and I know this is not really easy. No, it's very hard to make them understand, to make them to understand the reasons why we are doing it, especially that connectivity that is very crucial in this thing. No, because if they will not understand that, once they find that it's so hard to make the Ecobricks, it's so and it takes so much time, they will soon forget it. It's so much easier to just throw it around, to just burn it. Okay, so I mean, if we have that, if we embed that. The reasons, the philosophies, the principles in them, even if they leave it for a time, they will always go back to it. Okay.
Yeah.
And the second question on how does it, why, how can you heal it at this point? I know most people would not understand what losing somebody is if they did not lose someone. Most people would not understand what it is really to be a victim of the problem, or if they will not understand cancer if they have not. They may we sympathize. Yes, we sympathize with people. But most, I'm not saying all, most people would hardly understand how it is if they have not been there. They have not been an immediate part of the people who get sick with this. And so we have to look into healing the earth. Like plastics, as we have said, where did this come from? Oil. And when you put oil in land, it pollutes the land. And even though we do not see them anymore, they are those small, very small particles that are being consumed maybe by the plants. And these plants consumed by animals. And these animals, we butcher and eat them. So I think these are things that we cannot really heal if we don't make them understand the connectivity of things. Because, example, if you are sick, if you are sick and you just take any medicine, like you have LBM and you take biogesic, it will not solve the problem. So it's only when we really understand the cause that we can put the right solution. So we have to really go back to the principles, to again the connectivity of things before we can know. And that I know is hard to let people understand, but one person at a time is no, and that has my that is my no, that is my that's what I am doing now. It was easy when I was dealing with the youth, and it became easy when I was there. That's really making things happen. But when I went up to a higher position and I do not have already direct work, I don't work directly with the learners. I saw it. I mean I saw the actions fading. Okay, and only those. One reason that I asked to those that continued with it is, why did you continue? Because they understood the connection of what they are doing to the possible things that they can do with it, and the possible things that they are solving, and the possible the connection of it to what they are the reasons that they are doing it. So I could say that if they really understood it, even if they will live it, it's just like it's just like faith. If even if there may be a time when your faith you're so down, but if you know your faith, you will always go back to it. And if you know the reasons why you are doing it, there may be a time that your actions will be a little bit fading away, but you will always go back to it. So I think more as an educator, I could say that it's more of looking into building the reason for doing the Ecobricks. So that's it.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Wow.
I
I think I know. I just want to add that it's like that's also I remember how important to introduce Ecobrick, not about the how to make Ecobrick, but why we are making Ecobricks, and that is something that we still want to do more. And I just want, if I am a you, can we say like I'm Earth? So then, if I'm healing the Earth, the Earth will be healing. That's what just thinking. Okay, now is 10:04. What do you think, Lucy? Like we pick one more questions, or we go to the conclusion, kind of closing part? Lucy, you're muted.
Apologies. I'm happy with one more question, but it's up to Irene and Russell.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially Irene, as it's so late at night there.
It's okay.
Ya, oke. Jika ada satu pertanyaan lagi, boleh. Anyone? One
Ya,
more questions.
Mbak Ani.
Siapa? Rere? Oke, Rere. Oh, ada dua. Rere and Setio. Siapa duluan? Oke.
Eti ini Mbak Ani.
Siapa?
Eti Situbondo.
Oh, oke.
Bu Eti,
Oke, Bu
Bu
Eti.
Eti.
Boleh, Bu Eti.
Iya. Gini Mbak Ani. Ecobrick mengenai plastik adalah tanggung jawab masing-masing pribadi kita semua ya. Jadi salah satunya memenjarakan plastik dalam botol. Oke ya. Tapi tidak semua orang itu mau melakukan itu karena itu membutuhkan waktu yang panjang. Sedangkan pekerjaan yang lainnya menuntut untuk tidak mengerjakan itu karena dituntut pekerjaan lainnya yang lebih penting gitu. Jadi kebanyakan kemarin yang waktu ada edukasi Ecobrick di SMA ataupun SMP, itu kebanyakan mau membeli Ecobrick saya karena mereka sudah disibukkan oleh tugas-tugas yang lainnya gitu. Saya mau ndak tak jual, kasihan mau dijual kok ya eman-eman. Akhirnya ya karena itu mereka pelajar yang harus menuntut untuk itu, akhirnya saya jual pada mereka. Tapi tidak semua, tapi ada salah satu wali murid yang datang ke rumah saya. Bagaimana ini Bu Eti? Kok saya bikin sampai saya tonjok-tonjok itu kok tidak memenuhi syarat sampai menurut gurunya harus 200 gram, ternyata tidak sampai 200 gram, saya sampai ngoyo padahal harus bikin 5 itu. Akhirnya orang tua murid itu datang ke rumah saya mau membeli Ecobrick saya. Saya enggak kasih, cuma saya bilang itu kemarin waktu edukasinya siapa yang memberitahu. Ada salah satu trainer tapi saya juga enggak mengerti itu, rupanya enggak dikasih tahu volume, kalau volume botol kali 0,33. Jadi ternyata mereka pakai volume botol yang 300 mili. Nah, itu enggak bisa mencapai sampai 200 gram. 200 gram kalau dikalikan kan nggak sampai, makanya sampai ngoyo, akhirnya putus asa orang tuanya ke rumah saya. Nah itu salah satu itu.
Pertanyaannya adalah?
Pertanyaannya sebenarnya kalau kemarin saya melihat di ada postingan video bahwa di Singapura itu ada satu pabrik yang mengelola itu bahkan tidak mengeluarkan emisi yang beracun. Itu sudah semua plastik-plastik, bungkus-bungkus kertas semua terkumpul di situ. Jadi kita tidak repot membuat Ecobrick, ternyata di sana di Singapura itu sudah dijadikan bahan aspal. Jadi setiap hari plastik-plastik mereka baik kemasan apapun itu masuk ke dalam itu, dan di sana seperti pabrik ada pekerjanya, ada yang memilah, ada yang apa, dan mereka mempunyai bayaran untuk itu. Nah, kayaknya kalau meniru seperti itu, kita enggak usah bikin Ecobrick, begitu katanya saya. Nah, ini yang pertanyaannya saya, bagaimana seperti itu untuk ke depannya, ternyata itu bisa dimasukkan dalam satu pabrik, dipergunakan lagi untuk memperbaiki jalan-jalan aspal itu menjadi bagus di Singapura dan tidak mengeluarkan asap beracun.
Ibu pengen tahu pendapatnya Russell dan Irene tentang teknologi itu. Pertanyaannya itu. Karena kan teknologinya juga kita belum tahu apakah itu betul benar. So for
nanti
Russell
saya
and Irene,
kirim ke WA-nya, video itu ada. Nanti saya coba kirim ke WA di GEA itu ya.
Terima kasih Bu, karena teknologi itu banyak sekali di banyak tempat. So the question is like, that's always new technology that is like seems like really good, like no emission, it's kind of incineration, no emission and things like that, and that somehow makes, let's say, Indonesian or government is always appeal to go that way, right? And so including the people, it's like, oh wait, making Ecobrick is so difficult. So while people are making Ecobricks, but at the same time there is a global things that is like giving a solution, and it's like big industrial, and as if everything is gone. And so this is also the challenge. So what do you think about this? I think that's more the question about that. It's
I'd love to answer this one. This is a great question that gets to the heart of why we have written the Earthen Ethics. So terima kasih Ibu Etik.
Terima kasih. Thank you,
Ya, ini
Mr.
pertanyaan bagus.
Rafael.
So saya coba tolong jawab, and hopefully you can read the captions and get the answer. So Singapore and Mountain Province are two very different places. And Singapore gets a lot of attention because it's so modern and it seems to be very high technology, and it seems like they have many wonderful solutions to everything. And so the world, including Indonesia, copies and admires what is being done in Singapore. Singapore, as all of you know, has an incinerator where all of their plastic magically disappears, and maybe they make islands with it, maybe they make roads, who knows what they do with it, but it disappears. That's the main thing. I have been to Singapore many times, and one thing that I like to do wherever I go, whether it's Canada or Singapore, is I like to look in the tempat sampah, the garbage cans. I like to look at what people do with their waste. And in Singapore, if you open up a garbage can in a side street, in the Gang Kecil, lihat sampah di sana, you see not just plastic, you see aluminum cans, you see glass bottles, you see food waste, you see plastic bottles, you see plastic wrappers, you see it all put into one big container. And those containers are what go to the incinerator. They don't get segregated. They all go to the incinerator. Irene used the word sayang before. So ini sayang besar, because the energy that goes into making a plastic bottle, a glass bottle, an aluminum can, there's a tremendous amount of factories and mining and resources that go into extracting and making these materials. And then what do they do in Singapore? They go and they just burn it. And man, they get a little bit of electricity from it, but the studies show that it's not that effective for making electricity. Certainly not effective if you consider all the energy that went into making those products, shipping them around the world to get to Singapore. It's not energy efficient at all. And then also there's the shame, the sayang in wasting these materials that could be reused again, that could be given another purpose. Not even thinking about using them to enrich, just using them again for the same purpose, circular, let alone spiral. So what you have in Singapore is you have a spiral, but it's not a spiral like you have in Mountain Province, where things get used and the mountain gets gardened and things get richer and richer. In Singapore, it's like a black hole. So material that goes to Singapore gets sucked into this black hole, and it gets spiraled, and it turns into emissions. It gets turned into ash. It gets turned into loose carbon. So one of the principles in the Earthen Ethics is there's 5 principles. One of them is what we do with our matter and the concentration of matter, following the Earth's example of concentrating matter and carbon in particular, rather than scattering it loose. When they burn plastic and when they burn these materials in Singapore, it creates emissions. People say that there's no emissions, but there are definitely emissions. It has to go somewhere. And carbon dioxide, CO2, is the most common emitter from these incinerator plants. And that goes back loose into the atmosphere. And as you guys all know, CO2 emissions and climate change are directly connected. And this is the ecological depletion of our modern age from this type of outward spiral of material versus what the folks and Igorots in Mountain Province are doing when they take plastic and they concentrate it. They take plastic that is loose and scattered around, and they concentrate it into an ecobrick so that that plastic doesn't get out and contaminate and cause problems. But again, it's this fundamental principle of concentration of matter rather than scattering and loosing matter out into the world.
Okay, Mr. Russell,
And
thank you.
just say this is why Irene and I felt it was so important to write the Earthen Ethics, is because in Singapore, they want to know what the best thing to do is with their plastic. And so they've looked at all the Western materials and they listened to Western scientists and engineers, and they concluded that, okay, let's incinerate. But if they'd gone back and they listened to some of their indigenous traditions, then I think they would have come up with very different ideas for how to structure their economy and how to deal with their matter. And for us, this is why it needs to be articulated and put in a book that is accessible for English speakers and for a modern audience, so that these very critical ideas enter the discussion and the dialogue, because they're not there.
Okay, thank you, Mrs.
My answer to that is simple, though I am not so sure if I got the question correctly. But anyway, it's as Russell said, the situations are very different. So we put solutions to based on now. Russell has already mentioned about what it was done in Singapore, no? But I will not talk about that. But let's look at our own situation. In my place, a smokeless incinerator, actually in Sagada they started an incinerator before, but we had to stop it because of the pollution that it causes. So with the current situation that we are in, we cannot afford a smokeless incinerator, but the plastics are still there. They are being scattered with nothing to, and I mean, an eyesore to all. And so the Ecobricks is a solution that we could employ, no, that we could already use. Yes, there are others, like there are some. I have a friend who also made use of and then instead of plastics and mixed it with, I mean, they have to they have to grind the plastics and then mix it with cement. I mean, and then use it as an. There are other possible solutions, but what is good with Ecobricks is one, though I think we have Russell and I already discussed this many years back, is that it's not a permanent solution. Okay? Because our aim is in the future, if possible, there will no more be plastic wastes around. That so we cannot make any more Ecobricks in the way that we are doing now. Okay, and so so we have a situation and the solution is different. So there are also people who had been telling us, I mean, as a similar situations before. I remember when I presented this, even our Department of Environment and Natural Resources questioned it. And I said, what solution can you give now that could solve the current problem that we are facing, or the current challenge that we are facing, that is acceptable to the principles that we are standing for. And so I think that also answers the question. I mean the question, the way that I understood your question.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, actually, I think two people wants to ask questions, but how is this?
Why don't we just hear the questions and then we
Yeah.
can, Irene and I can make some concluding remarks so we can wrap up.
Oh, okay. So I think Shanti, you are. Oh, Pak Mas Tio, silakan. One of you. Apa dia siapa dulu?
Santi dulu.
Oke. Paling enggak mereka mendengar pertanyaan dari dua-duanya, kemudian nanti mereka akan sekaligus menutup. Oke. Santi, silakan.
Hi, I'm Quinn.
uh, Santi's daughters, and I want to ask question like in the term of waste management, we use the 3 R's principles with that hierarchy of the upside down triangle. More in reduce than reuse system, and the last option is recycle. And I get that there are some people that have perception about the eco brick is a false solution or short-term solution because the small cut of the plastic are making microplastic potential more bigger. So like uh what in the eco brick principles value that can I know or can I get to strengthen the eco brick principle itself? Yeah, get my question?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
We hear one more question because Setio was asking too, so maybe relevant, maybe not, but at least Setio can say something. Silahkan, Mas.
Ya, bukan lebih ke pertanyaan, tapi hal yang sangat penting mengucapkan terima kasih yang dalam pada Russell, Irene, Mbak Ani, kemudian Lucie, pejuang-pejuang lingkungan yang lain, ada Mbak Rere dan semuanya, Santi khususnya yang mengajak dan mengenalkan tentang arti dan kepedulian tentang lingkungan. Permasalahan tetap terus ada, sedangkan kita yang harus dikuatkan kadang-kadang naik turun seperti yang dikatakan Irene, kadang ke atas dan ke bawah, dan Ani, Irene, Russell, pejuang-pejuang lingkungan yang lain harus tetap ada untuk menguatkan itu seperti kami yang baru menyadari tentang bagaimana harus menjaga lingkungan. Dan sangat mengapresiasi kenapa buku ini harus ada. Ketika Ani, Irene, Russell itu tidak ada, maka buku ini akan menjadi penguat dan untuk menghidupkan ketika kami yang berada di lingkungan pendidikan sedang terpuruk untuk tidak peduli terhadap itu. So sekali lagi makasih, mudah-mudahan tetap sehat pejuang-pejuang lingkungan, dan ini sangat berarti buat anak-anak kita dan baru menyadari sangat bahagia perjuangan Irene, Russell, Ani dan yang lain luar biasa. Terima kasih.
Thank you. Okay, so Queen was asking in English, but Setio is basically really saying thank you so much, appreciating you guys just listening the story and his story and everything, and until now as a trainer that he feel like really thankful and appreciated what you've been doing, and it's how important the book is. And so I think that's later on, maybe Russell will talk about the plan in translating in Indonesia. So that's yeah. Thank you so much, appreciating about this, and it's so important. And the book should be read by many more people, especially he is an educator, and with the ups and downs, at least there is something to hold on to, right? Like it's like something that going back and then strengthen the semangat lagi or the spirit again. Okay, that's from Stio. So if you have a comment on Queen's questions, and I think it's going to be also a closing. Russell?
Or Irene, you want to go first on the microplastic question?
Yeah, I did not understand well the question. So,
Oh.
if
Okay,
can you answer
I
it
got
first?
it. I got the question, I think. If I understand correctly, Queen was saying that there's a critique of Ecobricks, that Ecobricks are creating more microplastics because the plastics get cut up to be put into the bottles. And so people are like, whoa, you're creating all sorts of small pieces of plastic that are going to get scattered. Okay, so I don't know. My observation is that when Ecobricks are made, the plastic is concentrated into a bottle, that's the intention, and that the plastics stay within the bottle and they don't go anywhere. Whereas if you look at what Singapore does, or in my country, how we recycle plastics, in fact, there's a lot more scattering that goes because the plastics get sent all around the world. As they get sent around the world, they get processed, but they fall off the conveyor belts, they fall off the ship, they get scattered, they get sent to another factory to turn another type of plastic, and then that plastic goes around the world somewhere else. CO2 emissions happen, and so you've got more carbon going out because of the whole process. Whereas in Mountain Province, when Irene makes her Ecobrick, or we make our Ecobrick here in Jogja, the journey of the plastic stops. We literally take it out of that global industrial process and we localize it. We take responsibility for it. We localize it in our homes, and we build with it carefully in a way that the Ecobrick is not going to get damaged in the near future. We build with earth. We build with silicone. We use it in a wise way where it's going to be safe and on a safe journey for hundreds of years potentially. Or we had a discussion about this. It could just be in the next 10 years, maybe 10 years from now, there's going to be an amazing technology that can turn an Ecobrick into hydrogen gas that can fuel our spaceship. So that when we store it in our homes like this, it's a material bank. We're saving this plastic. We're keeping it out of industry, out of the global economy, and we're saving it for local use for who knows what in the near or long-term future.
Yeah, in other words, in our current situation, it, I think, is a better solution. So thank you.
Yeah. And we can say that. Why do we say it's the better solution? Because with the Earthen Ethics, we have these 5 parameters by which we can evaluate the recycling system, the incineration in Singapore, the attempts at pyrolysis, the attempts to convert plastic to hydrogen, to paving roads. We can take a look with the Earthen Ethics at each of those potential technologies, and we can discern how it follows the Earth's example in its management of carbon, its management of matter. And we can say, it's doing this right, it's doing that right, but it's not doing this. It's doing that right, it's not doing this, it's doing this. It's raising one of our 5th principle is raising ecological consciousness. So this is one of the amazing things that Ecobricks does, and why we have so many educators here is because we all know that when people make Ecobricks, their consciousness about their interconnection with the rest of the world raises. When folks in Singapore throw all their plastic in a bin and it goes to an incinerator, they don't think twice about any of that stuff. It's an easy solution. There's no challenge. Their consciousness decreases every time they participate in it. And the Earth, what did the Earth do over 4 billion years? It has steadily raised the consciousness of all the different entities on it over time till, we've got mycorrhizal networks under forests, we've got humans connected, we've got animals talking to each other, we've got this consciousness that's raised. So in order to follow Earth's example, we have to make sure that our technologies, whatever they may be, are raising ecological consciousness. That's a fundamental criteria of what it means to be green. Yeah. And which I hope we've achieved in this little conversation today. Thank you to Lucie and Annie, who have been insistent we do this for such a long time, and for all of you guys for attending, because this is what it's all about, right? We're discussing these things, and our consciousness is being raised, and that's the beauty of Ecobricks and this movement. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Lucie. Thank you, Russell. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much. Good night.
Yes. So Lucie, maybe we close okay, actually there's still one more, maybe just a minute, Russell. It's what's the next plan for the book? So teman-teman Indonesia, jadi buku ini sebenarnya bukan tentang Ecobrick saja. Ini tuh lebih dasar, lebih fundamental cara berpikir, cara kayak kriteria, kayak ukuran, mengukur bagaimana segala macam jenis teknologi yang ada. Dan kemudian di Ecobrick ada salah satunya. Jadi ini jadi buku yang cukup penting untuk landasan berpikir dan mengukur gitu. Dan kayak tadi Russell bilang tentang meningkatkan kesadaran ekologi. So, what's the next plan for this book? Well, especially for Indonesian, we really want to read in Indonesia for sure, ya kan teman-teman. Jadi harus berbahasa Indonesia or any plan. And I don't know, this is book number 1, so what is that? Is this going to be number 2, number 3, or how? So, short, and then I'll give to Lucie for closing after that. Thank you. Or how to buy, how to access. Okay, Russ, that's it.
Okay, well, it took us 10 years to write this first book, so that's got us to this. I we've already sold out the first 250 copies over here in Indonesia. I know Irene has the intention to print some over there in the Philippines, so that's part of the plan. We're going to start printing the next edition, the second edition. So the same book one, but with some fixes implemented here in Jogja next week. We're going to start doing that. Lucie is selling her copies over there in the UK. And then the Indonesian version. So that's, for me, that's a big priority, is getting it translated into Indonesian for the movement here, because for me, that's actually the primary market. That's who this really needs to read it. And Filipinos. So I would love to see Filipinos reading this too, because it's their wisdom tradition that's featured in it. Yeah. Then there's book two. Book two is the Ethics. That's already up online. So for those of you who already have the book, the book two is already published on our website, and I'll put the link in the chat afterwards on that, so you can already start to read. Queen, if you want a really good answer to your question, you can read the first chapter of book two, which is online, which challenges the whole paradigm of recycling and circular economy. And that's coming along. We're almost ready to publish that in book formats. But that's still a ways. Irene and I still have to work on that. I've got some things to send you, Irene, on that. Do you want to add anything, Irene, to that?
I think you have already said it. But personally, on my part, I'm looking at it. I'm practicing some things here. Not only but I have some things that I'm doing, which I think can be another thing that we will work on. Of course, it works around the principles of Ayyew, the wisdom of Ayyew, and I could, aside from what you have said, this is just an addition. We could work more on looking into that on another collaboration.
Nice. Okay, then I'll give it to Lucie as a conclusion. Guys, this is recording. Okay, this is being recorded, ini direkam, and we want to upload the record like di drive kita, and then semoga nanti kita bisa bagi untuk at least semua trainers. And juga mungkin video ini kan juga direkam ya, jadi kita juga mungkin akan menyimpan dan menggunakan video itu sehingga orang yang pingin denger lagi atau nggak ikut bisa melihat lagi. Okay, Lucie, to you, and that's it.
So all I can say is thank you so much, everybody, for taking part in something that we've all been working on for so long, especially Irene and Russell, and what a wonderful gift that they have given the world. And I hope we can take this forward and make sure that as many people as possible get to hear this message, because it is one of the most important ones I've ever come across. And I think it is the way that we will heal our world. So thank you very much, Irene and Russell, and thank you everyone for joining us. And I hope you'll be willing to join us for the next one.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. It's a great time meeting all of you.
Thank you. Bye guys
Thank you.
semuanya.
Thank
Semoga
you.
kita
Thank
akan
you.
buat
Selamat,
lagi
Irin.
Terima
dengan
kasih.
banyak
Bye.
chapter.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye, everyone.
everybody.
Okay.
Okay.
That was great, Russell. Thank you, and Annie and Lucie. And those, I enjoyed the time.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
night. It's sudah
Right.
late. It's late over there.
We'll get the
Yeah.
recording out to everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I usually sleep later than this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.